my girlfriend announced. "I'm pregnant, but I need a DNA test to know if it's yours or Kyle's." I calmly scheduled the test. What the doctor revealed about the paternity results shocked everyone in that room. I felt something cold settle in my chest as Ree held that pregnancy test, tears streaming down her face. We'd been together 2 years, living in my apartment for 6 months, and I thought we were building something real. Until she dropped the bomb about Kyle, her work friend, who texted her good morning every day, and who she'd sworn was just a colleague when I'd asked 3 months ago. "It was just once, maybe twice," she sobbed. "We were working late on the Henderson project and things just happened." The timeline hit me like a sledgehammer. 6 weeks ago, right when she'd suggested we needed to reconnect and had been initiating intimacy more than usual, she'd been sleeping with both of us simultaneously. When she got defensive about my questions, something shifted in my mind. The emotional part of me wanted to scream, but the analytical part, the part that had gotten me through law school and built my practice, took over. "You're right," I said calmly. "Thank you for telling me. Let's schedule a DNA test." Her surprise at my composure told me everything. She expected the safe, understanding boyfriend who'd accept whatever she gave me. She was about to learn she'd miscalculated badly. What Ree didn't know was that her confession had just triggered every strategic instinct I'd developed as a family law attorney. I'd spent 5 years watching cheating spouses try to manipulate their partners, and I recognized every move in her playbook. More importantly, I had resources she couldn't imagine. My practice specialized in high-conflict divorces, which meant I understood evidence gathering, asset protection, and how to document everything for maximum legal impact. I also had something Ree desperately needed: financial stability. She worked retail management, making $32,000 annually, and lived paycheck to paycheck before moving in with me. Her entire comfortable lifestyle, the $2,800 monthly rent on my downtown apartment, the $400 monthly car payment I'd taken over, even her $150 weekly grocery budget, all depended on my $180,000 annual income. But my biggest advantage was professional connections. My brother Ethan worked as a nurse practitioner and could guide me through the medical aspects. My law school roommate Jake had become a private investigator who specialized in infidelity cases and owed me favors from divorce referrals. And my cousin Maria ran a background check company that could dig up information on anyone for the right price. While Ree was at work the next day, I called Ethan first. "Can you do a prenatal paternity test at 6 weeks?" I asked. "Yeah, but it's not recommended until 9 weeks for accuracy. The blood test costs around $1,500 and takes about a week for results. Why?" When I explained, his response was immediate. "Dude, leave now. If it's not yours, you leave. If it is yours, you still leave because she cheated." But I had a different plan. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to expose every lie and make sure she faced consequences for trying to manipulate me into raising another man's child. I spent the next hour creating a detailed documentation system on my laptop with timestamps, screenshots, and a financial breakdown of everything I'd invested in this relationship. I started with evidence gathering. Ree had left her iPad logged into her messages, and I spent 2 hours systematically screenshotting everything. Nothing explicitly sexual, but plenty of thinking about you, and last night was amazing messages from the exact time frame she'd mentioned. I organized them chronologically and saved them to a secure cloud folder. Then I called Kyle directly. "Hey man, it's Ree's boyfriend. We need to talk." He hung up immediately but called back 5 minutes later, probably after Googling my law firm. "Look, I didn't know she had a boyfriend," he said nervously. "Really? Because she lives with me and has for 6 months. She said you were roommates." His story started falling apart immediately. When I told him about the pregnancy, the silence stretched for 30 seconds. "We use protection every time," he finally said. "I can't have a kid right now. I'm getting married in 4 months to my fiancée, Aria. We've been together 5 years. Perfect." Kyle was engaged, terrified of this coming out, and had been completely manipulated by Ree's lies. "It was a mistake," he insisted. "Just a couple times." But then he corrected himself. "I mean, maybe 4 or 5 times over the past 2 months. 4 or 5 times, not the once, maybe twice Ree had claimed. I was starting to see the full scope of her deception, and I documented every word of our conversation in my growing file. Over the next week, I systematically gathered intelligence while maintaining my calm facade with Ree. I paid Maria $300 for a comprehensive background check on Kyle Morrison. The report revealed he worked at Henderson Marketing downtown, making $65,000 annually, was indeed engaged to Aria Coleman, who taught kindergarten at Riverside Elementary, and had no criminal history or previous marriages. More importantly, Kyle had been texting me constantly, panicking about his wedding and begging me not to tell Aria. He even offered to pay for an abortion if Ree would get one, $800 cash, no questions asked. I saved every desperate message he sent, building my evidence file methodically. Meanwhile, Ree was playing perfect girlfriend, cooking elaborate dinners, cleaning obsessively, being extra affectionate. She was also texting Kyle constantly, though she thought she was being sneaky about it. What she didn't know was that Kyle was forwarding me screenshots of their conversations, hoping to stay on my good side. Through these messages, I learned she'd been telling Kyle that I was emotionally unavailable, and that she was planning to leave soon anyway. I spent $500 on a consultation with Jake, my private investigator friend, who helped me understand the legal implications. In this state, if you're not married, you have no financial obligations to a child that isn't biologically yours, he explained. But if she puts your name on the birth certificate and you don't contest it within 60 days, you could be on the hook for 18 years of support, regardless of biology. That consultation was worth every penny. Jake also helped me understand how to protect my assets. Open a separate bank account immediately, he advised. Start moving your money there gradually. If she's been living off your income, she might try to claim common law marriage or palimony. I followed his advice precisely, opening a new account at a different bank and transferring $15,000 over the course of 3 days. I also changed my direct deposit to the new account and updated all my automatic payments. If this relationship was ending, I wasn't going to subsidize her lifestyle during the transition. The night before our appointment, Ree tried one more manipulation. I've been thinking, maybe we don't need the test. Even if it's Kyle's, you're the one who's here. You're the one who loves me. Biology doesn't matter. When I insisted it mattered to me, she got angry. That's so old-fashioned. Lots of men raise children that aren't biologically theirs. When this test proves you're the father, I expect an apology for not trusting me. The audacity was breathtaking. She cheats with multiple men, admits the baby might not be mine, but I owe her an apology for wanting confirmation. I documented this conversation immediately after she went to bed, noting her exact words and the manipulative tactics she was using. That morning, I made my final strategic move. Instead of going straight to the appointment, I drove to Henderson Marketing and asked to speak with Kyle Morrison. The receptionist called up, and Kyle came down looking like he'd seen a ghost. "Kyle, we need to talk about today's appointment," I said loudly enough for the receptionist to hear. He tried to deflect, but I pressed on. "About the paternity test for Ree's baby." His face went white, and he quickly agreed to meet at the coffee shop across the street. Once we were seated, he was sweating bullets. "I'll sign away rights," he said immediately. "If it's mine, I want nothing to do with it. I'll pay child support quietly, whatever you want." But when I pressed him about his relationship with Ree, more lies emerged. She'd been telling him for months that we were basically roommates, that I was emotionally absent, that she was planning to leave soon. "She said you guys hadn't been intimate in months," he admitted, "that you were just friends helping each other with rent." I had him show me the texts where she said this, then forwarded the screenshots to myself. The messages painted a picture of calculated deception. Ree had been setting up her backup plan perfectly. If things worked out with Kyle, she'd leave me. If not, she had reliable old me to fall back on, the financially stable safety net who'd raise another man's child without question. "Please don't tell Aria," Kyle begged. "She's already planning our wedding. We've put down $8,000 in deposits. Her parents are flying in from Oregon." I looked at this pathetic man who'd been just as manipulated as I had been. "Kyle, you need to tell her yourself, today, before she finds out another way." At the clinic, my preparation paid off perfectly. I'd called ahead and explained the situation to the scheduling nurse, mentioning that we might need to test multiple potential fathers. When we arrived, the nurse was ready. Mr. Davidson, we have your paperwork ready, and we've prepared for the additional testing you mentioned. Ree's head snapped toward me. Additional testing? For Kyle, I said calmly. Since he's also a potential father, we need his sample too for accurate results. She tried to shut this down immediately. That's not necessary. It's definitely one of you two. But I was ready with my next move. That's strange, I said, pulling out my phone. Kyle texted me saying he was on his way with his fiancée. They should be here any minute. Ree went pale. You invited Kyle and his fiancée? We all need answers, right? Complete transparency. 20 minutes later, Kyle arrived with Arya, a petite blonde woman who looked like she'd been crying. The waiting room got very uncomfortable very quickly. What is she doing here? Ree demanded, pointing at Arya. I told her everything, Kyle said quietly. She deserves to know what kind of person she's been dealing with. Arya looked at Ree with pure disgust. You're the piece of trash who's been sleeping with my fiancé while pretending to be his friend. Her voice was steady, but filled with rage. Kyle showed me all your messages about how your boyfriend was emotionally unavailable and how you were planning to leave him anyway. But then Arya dropped her own bombshell. By the way, Ree, I'm pregnant too, 3 months along, so congratulations. You might have given my baby a half-sibling. The look on Ree's face was something I'll never forget. Pure shock mixed with the realization that her carefully constructed lies were crumbling around her. Dr. Martinez, a professional woman in her 50s, came out to address the chaos. Perhaps we should all calm down and focus on getting the medical answers we need. Mr. Morrison, we'll need your blood sample as well for the paternity test. The blood draws took about 30 minutes, with all of us sitting in uncomfortable silence. I spent the time calculating the costs in my head. $1,500 for the test, $500 for the PI consultation, $300 for the background check, plus the time I'd taken off work. But it would all be worth it for the truth. A week later, we all met back at the clinic for results. The tension was unreal. Ree hadn't spoken to me in 3 days after finding out I'd orchestrated the confrontation with Kyle and Arya. She'd been staying at her sister's house, though she still had clothes at my apartment. Dr. Martinez came in with a thick folder. I have some unusual news, she began. The results are quite unexpected. Just tell us, Ree snapped. Mr. Davidson, you are not the biological father. My heart dropped even though I'd suspected this outcome. The relief was immediate. No 18 years of child support, no legal complications. Mr. Morrison, you are also not the biological father. The room exploded. Ree was screaming about faulty tests while Kyle was demanding a retest. Arya was laughing hysterically. But Dr. Martinez wasn't finished. However, she continued, raising her voice over the chaos, there's more. Miss Thompson, when we ran your blood work, we discovered something significant. You're not actually pregnant. The room went dead silent. What? Ree whispered. Your HCG levels indicate what we call a chemical pregnancy. You were pregnant very briefly, probably for only a few days, but it wasn't viable. Your body has already miscarried naturally. The pregnancy tests you took at home were likely during the brief window when HCG was present in your system. Ree broke down sobbing. But I had symptoms, morning sickness, fatigue. Stress and anxiety can mimic pregnancy symptoms, Dr. Martinez explained gently. It's more common than you'd think. So there's no baby? Kyle asked, looking relieved. There's no baby. However, Dr. Martinez continued, we were able to run the paternity test on the fetal DNA that was present in Miss Thompson's blood from the non-viable pregnancy. Neither of you gentlemen are the biological father of that pregnancy, which means there was a third man involved. The revelation hit like a bomb. Ree was sobbing uncontrollably. Kyle was stunned into silence. Arya looked at me with something like pity. Who else, Ree? I asked quietly. I can't. Who else? I pressed. Through her tears, she finally admitted. There was this guy at the conference in March, Derek. It meant nothing. Just one night. March, 3 months ago, when she'd gone to a work conference in Chicago that I now realized wasn't entirely about professional development. Anyone else? I asked. She just cried harder, which told me everything I needed to know. In the parking lot, Kyle tried to apologize. Man, I'm sorry about all this. I had no idea she was playing us both. Save it for Arya, I told him. You've got bigger problems than me. Arya surprisingly came over to me. You okay? I will be. For what it's worth, you handled this with more class than I would have. I'd have burned everything down. The day's not over yet, I replied. She actually smiled. Good luck. They left together, Kyle trailing behind her like a beaten dog, probably heading to couples counseling or a breakup conversation. Ree was waiting by my car, mascara streaked down her face. Can we please just go home and talk about this? You can go home, I said, unlocking my door. I won't be there. You're leaving me after I just lost a baby? I turned to face her. You cheated with at least 3 different men. You lied about everything. You tried to manipulate me into raising another man's child. And now, we find out you weren't even pregnant to begin with. I thought it was yours. I hoped it was yours. Hope? I laughed bitterly. You hoped? You were hedging your bets, Ree. Kyle was your fun option, Derek was your conference fling, and I was your safety net. The reliable guy with the steady income who'd take care of everything. She tried to grab my arm. Please, I need you. I can't do this alone. Then you should have thought about that before you decided to sleep with half the city. I got in my car and drove away. She called me 36 times during the drive home. I didn't answer once. Here's what happened to everyone in the aftermath. 2 weeks after the clinic disaster, I had moved out completely. I had already signed a lease on a smaller apartment across town the day before the DNA test, knowing that, regardless of the results, I was done with Ree. The morning after the clinic appointment, while she was at her sister's house, I hired a moving company for $800 and took everything that was legally mine, which was basically everything since she'd moved into my furnished apartment. I left her clothes, her makeup, and the $200 garage sale couch she'd bought. I also left a note. Rent is paid through the end of the month. After that, it's your problem. Don't contact me again. Ree tried to contest this, claiming I'd illegally evicted her, but she was never on the lease. She was just a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. My attorney confirmed I had every right to remove her from my property with 30 days' notice, which I'd provided in writing. She tried to spin the story on social media, posting about how I'd abandoned her during a miscarriage, and how some men can't handle real women with complicated pasts. That backfired spectacularly when Arya commented with the full truth. This is the woman who was sleeping with my fiancé while living with her boyfriend and trying to pass off some random conference hookup's baby as his. She wasn't abandoned, she was exposed. The post got over 200 comments before Ree deleted it. Then she deleted her Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts entirely. Her professional reputation was in shambles. She showed up at my law firm the following Monday, making a scene in the lobby about how I was heartless and cruel. Security removed her, and my managing partner, who'd heard the whole story through office gossip, told me to take the rest of the week off with pay. Nobody needs that kind of drama, he said. Handle your personal business. Kyle and Arya's situation was more complicated. Somehow, they're still together, though he's basically on relationship probation for life. Arya made him quit his job at Henderson Marketing to get away from Ree and any other temptations. He now works at his father-in-law's plumbing company, making $45,000, a $20,000 pay cut that's costing him $240,000 over the next 12 years. She also made him go to individual therapy and couples counseling, which runs about $400 per month. Their wedding was postponed indefinitely, and they lost $3,000 in non-refundable deposits. Kyle is essentially paying a $263,000 penalty over the next decade for his affair with Ree. The conference guy Derek turned out to be a bigger piece of the puzzle than I initially realized. Through some detective work, I paid Jake another $400 to investigate. We discovered that Derek Wilson was a married sales manager from Atlanta who'd been having an ongoing affair with Ree, not just a one-night stand. Ree had been texting Derek regularly, hoping he'd leave his wife for her. When she told him about the pregnancy scare, he blocked her immediately. But his wife Jennifer had already found evidence of their extended affair and was filing for divorce. Here's where it gets interesting. Jennifer Wilson contacted me through LinkedIn after finding my information in Derek's phone records. I heard you were Ree's boyfriend, she wrote. Can we talk? We met for coffee, and Jennifer brought receipts, literal receipts from the Chicago Conference Hotel. Room service for two, champagne, the works. My husband said it was one drunk night, she told me. But you don't order $300 worth of room service for a one-night stand. Jennifer was taking Derek for everything in the divorce. Their $400,000 house, half his $95,000 annual salary in alimony, and primary custody of their two kids. Derek's affair with Ree was costing him approximately $1 million over the next 15 years. But here's the real kicker about my strategic approach. I'd been planning my exit from the beginning. 2 days before the DNA test, I'd already signed the lease on my new apartment and arranged for the moving company. I knew that regardless of the results, I was done with Ree. The test was just about getting closure and making sure I wasn't legally or financially liable for anything. My new place costs $1,800 per month, compared to the $2,800 I was paying for the downtown apartment, saving me $12,000 annually. I also calculated that I'd been spending approximately $1,500 per month on Ree's expenses, groceries, entertainment, her car payment, clothes, and miscellaneous purchases. That's $18,000 per year I was no longer hemorrhaging. The total financial impact of ending this relationship. I'm saving $30,000 annually, plus I avoided 18 years of potential child support that could have cost me $200,000 or more if I'd been tricked into accepting paternity. Ree's sister Mira reached out to apologize about a month later. This conversation revealed the most damaging information about Ree's character. She's always been like this, Mira told me over the phone. Even in high school, she'd date the nice guy while hooking up with the bad boys, then play victim when it blew up. But the most shocking revelation was that Ree had been bragging to Mira about juggling multiple guys. She'd called me her safety net, and Kyle her fun option. Mira had told her she was being horrible, but Ree had laughed it off, saying I'd never find out because I was too trusting and naive. "I'm sorry you got caught in her tornado," Mira said. I tried to warn her that this would blow up eventually, but she thought she was smarter than everyone else. Last I heard, Ree was living in a studio apartment that costs $1,200 per month, nearly 40% of her take-home pay. She's back to living paycheck to paycheck and has been on dating apps looking for her next financial safety net. Her bio says she's looking for a real man who can handle a strong, independent woman. The delusion is strong with that one. As for me, I'm in therapy working through the trust issues this whole mess created. But my therapist says I handled it better than most would have. "You stayed calm, gathered facts, and protected yourself legally and financially," she told me. "That's impressive emotional regulation under extreme stress." It doesn't feel impressive. It feels like survival. But I did learn something valuable. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And when they tell you they're pregnant with a baby that might not be yours, document everything and verify independently. My buddy asked if I regret not giving her another chance. "Another chance to what?" I asked. "Cheat with 4 guys instead of 3? Lie about 5 things instead of 10? Try to trap me with someone else's kid again? You don't think people can change?" Sure they can, but Ree doesn't think she did anything wrong. She thinks she's the victim in all this. Hard to change when you can't even see the problem. The strategic approach saved me from financial ruin, legal complications, and years of emotional manipulation. By staying calm, documenting everything, and using my professional resources, I turned what could have been a devastating betrayal into a complete victory. The final tally. Ree lost her comfortable lifestyle, her social media presence, her reputation, and her financial security. Kyle lost $20,000 in annual income, his job, and his relationship stability. Derek lost his marriage, his house, and over $1 million. Meanwhile, I'm saving $30,000 per year, avoided potential child support obligations, and gained complete clarity about what I will and won't accept in future relationships. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be anyone's safety net ever again.